Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name is Dr. Ray, and today we're going to be talking about things to consider during the cold weather. So it's got quite chilly out here, and I want to share with you some tips that I think would be helpful in keeping your pet safe during the cold winter weather months. So it's cold, our pets are frisky, we want to do fun things, and I want to help you keep it safe. So we're going to go through some of my top tips to do that this winter. So obviously, easiest thing is bring them inside, okay? They're inside, they're gonna be sheltered, everything is wonderful. But what happens if you can't bring them inside? Or, how do you know if their coat is long enough and what type of weather they can tolerate? Well, it's important to remember that even though they do have long fur and they are essentially wearing coats, there is a limit, even to long-coated dogs. So you absolutely need to bring them inside when the weather's become extreme. But if you can't do that, I do have some helpful tips that maybe you can use to try to keep them safe, warm, and comfortable, even if they have to stay outside. So one of the easiest things that you can do is taking the existing structure that you've already created for them. So maybe you have a dog house or a cat house or some sort of a lean-to, and just install a windbreak. So wind chill factor is a real thing. It can dramatically decrease the feel temperature of the ambient air. So it could be, let's say, 10 degrees Fahrenheit, but with the wind chill, we may drop below 0. And so simply putting up a windbreak to stop that wind chill factor may be something that you can easily do or easily install. You can do things like just adding some plywood to a side. You can even use some maybe landscaping plastic that you can simply just staple to the side. For outdoor kitties, a really interesting trick that a client of mine shared with me is you can get old coolers. So the old styrofoam coolers, we get a lot at the clinic where our cold items are delivered, vaccines and things. But now, which is the age of delivery and everybody's ordering things on Amazon and having groceries delivered, a lot of us have those styrofoam coolers laying around. You can simply take the top off of those, turn them on their side, and they make a really nice cozy cat house, which is, protected from some of the elements, especially the wind, again, talking about the wind on one of the sides, and they have easy access in and out. So it can be a really nice way to both recycle and do something nice for Mother Nature, and also keep your pet safe from the elements. Of course, you can buy some commercial heated houses. They are out there. You can find them all over the internet, big ones, little ones that have timers for safety, and so those are a good option as well. Now, outside isn't the only place you have to be careful. During the summer, we know heat kills in cars. Cars can become extremely hot in the summer months, and we all know we shouldn't leave our pet enclosed in a car without the car running or without the air conditioner running. But the same is true for the cold as well. And so during cold and winter months, the car essentially becomes a refrigerator. It traps that cold air in. So cold temperatures can be extremely dangerous in a car as well. And so you always want to remember not to leave your pet unattended in a vehicle during extreme temperatures, hot or cold. But a lot of people don't realize that in the cold can be just as dangerous as leaving a pet in the heat. Now, what if you have to do that? What if you have a camper or an RV? Well, this is an awesome time to bring up the sponsor of this video, which is Waggle. Waggle has paired with me to bring these important tips to you. And their pet temperature monitor is an awesome way to keep tabs on the temperature of your RV, your car, wherever you need to make sure that they are in a safe environment. And so you can check them out at mywaggle.com, and I really appreciate them sponsoring this video and having some wonderful tools that you can use to keep your pet safe, like this pet temperature monitor. So what about if you're not traveling this winter season by car or RV? What if you're going by plane? How many of you guys know that there are ground temperature restrictions on air flight travel for our pets? So several times a year, at least, I have people coming into my clinic asking me if I can write some sort of a letter, some sort of a note to waive temperature restrictions on the ground for their pets to fly. And, usually I don't do that because there's a real reason why that is the case. You need to call the individual airlines and find out what those restrictions are, but many airlines only allow transport of pets when the ground temperature is between 45 degrees Fahrenheit and 85 degrees Fahrenheit at the origin of the flight and also at the connection destination cities. And so if the temperatures are outside of that range, your pet's not going to be allowed to fly in cargo. Now, it may be different if your pet is flying inside the cabin with you, but if you have a pet that is in a crate or a large pet or a pet that is having to travel in cargo, please keep in mind that there are going to be some travel restrictions for safety purposes if the temperature is lower than 45 degrees. So absolutely always check with your airline before you, on board, if there are going to be some temperature restrictions that may preclude your pet from traveling with you by plane. Another important tip that's really easy to do, and you guys can run out and get this done probably any day of the week, is have your pet microchipped. Microchipping is so very important, but during the winter months, it may be extremely important. So snow is heavy in a lot of places, and what happens if your pet gets out? It may travel through the snow, and we may not be able to find their tracks. We may not be able to follow them. The snow and the weather may be so heavy, we may not be able to go out and search for them. They may go out and they may hunker down trying to escape the cold. And so if we have a microchip, we can hopefully locate them and get them back. A lot of times what will happen is a good Samaritan will find the pet, out in the cold, and obviously wants to bring them inside, will bring them in their home. And how better way to find them than to take that pet to the veterinarian or the local shelter, have them scanned, and then they can be returned to you. And so microchipping can be an awesome tool. It's very, very quick and easy to do. Doesn't have to be sedated. It can be done right there in the office. I would say probably every veterinary clinic has one of these microchip implant devices, and it is a great tool. Many companies, huge database, and I highly recommend having your pet microchipped, not just for winter, although it would be useful, but for any time. It's a great permanent identification. Now the feet. People always ask me about the feet and the paws. That is definitely a concern that you need to be paying attention to. Again, our pets are really frisky. A lot of them do seem to love to go outside and run and frolic. But you do have to be very careful that the feet are protected. And so one of the easiest ways to do that actually is to shave the fur in between the paws. The reason being is the snow can actually accumulate there and ball up. It can also leave moisture there, and that moisture can lead to infections that can be very intensely itchy or intensely painful. And so you can do things like shaving the fur and then drying the feet when you get back in the house. For shaving the fur, I like to use things like a men's beard clipper because those are very safe and you are not going to risk cutting or damaging. It's very difficult to get into those crevices. So I like a simple man's beard trimmer to do that. I don't really recommend using scissors because that is a way that you can accidentally cut your pet, especially if they're moving around. And so something like that beard trimmer that has a protective guard or very small clipper blades that are not going to cut is a good way to keep that fur trimmed around the paw pads. Obviously, you can buy booties. There are a lot of booties that are sold at sporting goods stores and things like that. You want to look for ones that maybe have some waterproof nature to them. So again, the paws are not getting wet, which can breed infection once they get back into the house, into the warmer temperatures. And so paw health, very important. Booties, trimming the fur and things like that. Always being cognizant if your pet is starting to develop a limp or a lameness that may indicate pain, that may indicate that there's infection or something going on there. And on those lines, what will cause that pain? Yes, infection will do it, but dogs are susceptible to diseases of the cold like frostbite and hypothermia. And so it is very important that you are paying attention to the signs that these things may be occurring. Frostbite is going to be very similar to in people. You're going to see a discoloration to the skin. It may turn brown, black. It may become brittle and no longer supple. It'll be cold to the touch. You won't see that blood flow occurring in that area. And so that is an important thing to look for in areas that have very limited circulation. So the tips of the ears, the tips of the toes, the tips of the tail, those areas are going to be the most susceptible. Hypothermia is another thing. It is something that I think is not considered a lot. It's important to know the normal body temperature of our pets. And so cats and dogs are going to have a normal body temperature that ranges from about 99 to 102.5. They're much warmer than us. They feel much warmer to us. That's what makes them nice and warm and snuggly and makes us want to cuddle up with them. So their body temperature does need to be quite a bit warmer than ours is. So that is very important for us to realize, especially with small pets that don't carry a lot of fat and insulation. So we want to make sure that we are keeping them warm and we are not allowing that body temperature to drop below 99 degrees. When we start to get into the 96, 97, 98, we are really worried that we are getting into some trouble there, and we need to address that very quickly. Signs that you may notice are shivering, uncontrollable shivering, not that shivering that I am scared, but the shivering that I am really, really cold that will not stop. We need to get some warming devices on them. I do caution people being careful with things like heating pads. Heating pads can cause burns. I like to do things like maybe taking a blow dryer at a warm setting and gently blowing that warm air around your pet if you need to do that, especially if you've given them a bath or any type of moisture is still on the skin. You can do things like taking a sock and filling it with rice and putting it in the microwave for a few seconds to warm that up, and putting them under blankets or pillows, never applying them directly to your pet's skin. Those are easy things that you can do at home. Heating pads, though, can be a danger. They can burn, especially if your pet's not feeling well and is not able to move off of them. They can also be a fire hazard if they don't have an automatic shut-off function. And so the rice trick is a really nice one, and the blow dryer is a really nice one as well, if you need to encourage some heating if you feel like your pet's body temperature has dropped too low. Obviously, at the same time, I recommend you call your veterinarian or the local emergency clinic, because these type of diseases, hypothermia and frostbite, can be corrected if we catch them early enough. So along those lines, we need to be prepared. We need to know our veterinarian's phone number. We need to know our local emergency clinic's phone number. Snow days are a real thing, right? Snow days occur. We want to make sure that we are keeping 1 week of medications and food available in case we cannot leave the home, and in case deliveries have been disrupted or your veterinary clinics are closed. So be prepared. Make sure that you have those things handy so that if you cannot access those facilities, you are having your necessary medications at your fingertips. You want to make sure that you have that microchip information that we talked about available in case your pet does unfortunately get out. And then you want to have any important documents that you may need. So your shot records, anything like that, you want to have available at your fingertips if you need them. Maybe you have to evacuate, maybe you have to emergency board your pet. You want to make sure that you have all that information handy. Now, what about pets and feeding? It's getting cold, right? We all know that when it's cold, outdoor pets maybe need a little bit more calories to keep them, they're expending a lot, right, to keep their bodies warm, so we need to supplement that. Obviously, that's outside pets. Inside pets is totally different, right? They're in ambient controlled temperature, so you probably don't need to adjust your pet's calories if they're an indoor pet. And you may have to adjust up your calories if your pet is an outdoor pet. But how do you do that? You don't just want to eyeball it, right? There is a way that I can show you guys to properly determine if you need to be increasing or decreasing your pet's calories during the winter season, or any season for that matter. And that is by conducting a body condition score. So as veterinarians, we rate pets' body condition and determine whether they are at a healthy weight or not, because they come in all different shapes and sizes. Chihuahuas, all the way up to our big Great Danes and massive bulldogs and things like that. They all are going to be different sizes. There's no special magic number, right? And so we use a body condition score. And what that is, it's a system from 1 to 9, 1 being extremely thin and emaciated. We never want to see our pets there, up to 9. And those are pets that are morbidly obese, and they are struggling with some serious health implications because of that obesity. Ideal is 4 or 5. And so 4 is going to be a lean ideal, 5 is going to be a little heavier ideal, but they're both ideal. So how do you know if your pet is fitting in that ideal? And that goes for cats and dogs. And so what you're going to do is you're going to want to look at their side, and you're going to want to look for their ribs. The ribs should not be visible. That's going to put us in that low 1, 2, 3 range, but they should be feelable. So you should be able to play them like the keys of a piano. You should be able to feel each one individually, and that's going to be your 4. 5, you can still do that, but it's a little bit harder. And so 4 or 5, you should not be able to see the ribs necessarily. Maybe if they turn just right and the light just shines just perfectly, you can see them, but you should be able to feel them. Once you start losing your ability to feel the ribs, we're putting a significant amount of fat on, and that's an indication that your pet is becoming overweight. And so if you see your pet trending in that direction, you may need to cut down the food, maybe 10%, 20%, until you can get them back into that ideal range. Pet obesity is a major health problem, and so we don't want to set our pet up for failure during the winter months because maybe we think they needed a little bit too much supplementation and we weren't prepared to go ahead and do that. Now, there is an actual calculation if you're not sure even where to start with that. I do have some videos on that I will link down below on how to perform a body condition score and also how to calculate your pet's resting energy requirement so that you know exactly how many calories you need to be starting to consider feeding, and then you can adjust up and down from there. So let's talk about now household hazards. There are a lot that a lot of people know about. There are plenty that that are obvious, but there may be a couple that I want to bring to your attention that are not that obvious. Car engines might be an obvious one for a lot of people. So during the winter months, it's cold, and it may not be your pet, but it may be, a stray pet or a feral pet or a pet that has escaped and is just looking for a warm place. And what they will do is they will find the warm spot under the hood near the engine where the car is still emitting heat, and they will hunker down there. And so when it's really, really cold, an easy thing to do is just honk the horn a couple times or just knock on the hood a couple times to try to dislodge and see if any animals may be hiding in there. It's important for our companion animals, but there may be other animals that are hiding in there too, such as squirrels or small rodents, and we want to make sure that they're safe too. We want our companion pets safe too, but we would like to keep wildlife safe as well. The other thing you want to do is check your clothes dryer. So again, speaking from experience here and having treated pets that have suffered injuries from this, it's really cold. Sometimes our houses are a little colder than what our pets want, and they're pretty smart. They're gonna seek out the heat sources. And so I have treated patients, cats specifically, that have jumped into the clothes dryer to glean that heat, and the owner has not realized that. They've closed the door and they have turned the clothes dryer on. And so obviously that is extremely dangerous for readily apparent reasons. And so what you want to do is make sure your laundry room door is always closed, that your dryer door is always closed, and that you are always paying attention before you hit that start button that nobody has made a little bed in there or has jumped in there and prevent injuries from happening from your clothes dryer. Open flames and heaters. Again, experience here on this one. Open flames, obviously fireplaces, candles, and things like that. I have absolutely had long-haired pets walk by a fireplace or a candle and ignite their long fur, which can be dangerous. Obviously, burns are dangerous. The other thing you want to consider is bonfires that maybe you have done outside. You've had a party, you've had a bonfire. That ash is extremely hot even after the fun is over. And so I have had pets that are just wandering around and walk through the hot coals or the hot ashes and sustain serious burns to their feet. So be careful with open flames, not only for actually catching on fire, but also heat sources like coals and things like that your pet may walk through and sustain burns from as well. Heaters is another thing, and that's where that temperature monitor may be able to help you. But if you have a heater, you need to make sure that that heater, that portable heater, is safe for indoor use, or that you have a carbon monoxide monitor. And so I've also unfortunately had cases where an owner has been thinking that maybe it's a little bit too cold in the home, and we're going to turn on these portable heaters. And unfortunately, carbon monoxide is an odorless gas. Doesn't matter even if we're not home, our pets can't tell us. But if we're home with them as well, it can pose a serious health risk to ourselves, and that carbon monoxide can lead to death. So you want to always make sure that you are using these heaters appropriately, if they are rated for indoor use or not, that you follow those instructions, and that you have a carbon monoxide monitor in your house if you're going to be using any type of heater. So antifreeze is the next one I want to talk about. I think a lot of us know that antifreeze is toxic in animals. That information has been around for a long time. The active ingredient that we are worried about is ethylene glycol. That's the active ingredient that will go to the pet's kidneys and cause some serious kidney damage. It can also cause some neurological issues as well. A lot of antifreezes these days are pet safe, but what has made them pet safe isn't that they have removed the toxicity of it, it is that they have added an agent to it to make it bitter. And so the reason why animals are gravitating to antifreeze is that it's a very sweet, sugary taste, and so they migrate to that taste and it tastes good and they eat. And so they have added some bitter flavoring to some of these to deter that, but it doesn't mean that it is not toxic. And so it's very important that you are familiar with pet poison control and the pet poison control phone numbers. Those are available on the internet, and there are a couple of companies that will provide pet poison control services to you. They are a paid service, so you do have to pay for them. The information that they provide you is invaluable. They will also provide a case number to your veterinarian, and they have a database of all the products where they can then assist your veterinarian in treating your pet. It is very important to keep the package, okay? And so again, speaking from experience, not too long ago, I had a client that was passing through in the car. They weren't a permanent client, they were a traveling client. They were passing through, they had a bottle of antifreeze in the back of the car. They did not realize it. They stopped to pick something up at the store, and when they opened the back door, the bottle of antifreeze was chewed open and the pet had consumed an unknown quantity of the antifreeze. They were so upset. They took the bottle and they threw it away, and they proceeded to come to our office immediately for treatment. Well, unfortunately, that was not good because we need to relay that information to pet poison control. We need to know the exact product. Thankfully, we were able to call the store, and the workers at the store were so gracious to go out and go in the trash can and retrieve that bottle, and we were then able to treat the pet appropriately. And that's the important thing. This condition, antifreeze toxicity, is treatable. There are tests available out there if you're not sure if your pet got into it or not, and if caught soon enough, we can absolutely treat these guys. So make sure that you keep the package, and make sure that you know pet poison control phone number so that we can properly get these guys in and treated. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it brought to your attention maybe some new things to keep an eye out and new things to consider, as well as refreshed some older topics that maybe just needed a little refreshment. I want you to stay healthy and happy with your pets this winter season. I want to thank Waggle for sponsoring this video, and I will see you guys next time. Stay warm.